First message.
Shanae, this is Marty. When you get this message, you go give me a call, right?
Next message.
Shanae, this is Lashik. I'm just calling to see what happened to you because you wasn't in class today.
Message marked urgent.
Shanae, this is Christine. Some girl named Shirley just called here saying that something had happened to you. So I don't appreciate people calling here, freaking me out like that already had me in tears. If anything did happen, could you just please call me and let me know that you're okay?
To your voice in the falling rain, shuffle my cards and move back again. Hope was a word that you never seen. You stumble back forwards to find me.
Welcome to the big city, huh, guys?
That's right. I grew up here, the home of the F word and rude people.
Abby, I met Aaron when we worked in West Palm Beach, and he's smooth when it comes to talking to the witnesses, especially the ladies.
It's just all about building rapport, that's all.
Abby's more the quiet, flirting type.
I'm just more full of crap than most people.
That's because you're from here.
That's because I am from here, you're right.
I'm in Patterson, New Jersey, along with a new member of our team, Aaron Sam, who spent his career working on murder cases in West Palm Beach, Florida. We've also brought in Abby Abaddon-Delow, who knows how the big city works. We need all the help that we can get looking into the horrific murder of 21-year-old Tanae Jones. When I first read this case, it made me want to cry. Tanae was going to college, she was trying to be a nurse, and she was her parents' only child. On November the 21st, 2000, 2 days before Thanksgiving, a family friend arrived at Tanae's house to take her to the train station to spend the holiday weekend with her parents in Virginia. When he entered the house, he found Tanae lying face down on her bedroom floor, dead. She had been brutally stabbed with a screwdriver and shot multiple times.
Certainly not right for a parent to have to bury their child. They're going to remember her death every Thanksgiving.
It's very sad.
Back when it happened, a lot of the witnesses were in college, and now they've grown up.
If we can get them to give us that little spark, a little lead, then they help us close it.
The gun was never recovered, and there was very little physical evidence, so talking to witnesses is going to be key. But in big cities, rumors and street talk often muddy the waters. Kelly's brought me in because I had years of experience in cases like this.
If we don't solve this one, I think I want to quit. Just saying, guys. I have two young daughters, 21 and 23. What happened to Tanae, that's the kind of nightmare scenario that every parent dreads. This is the one that has to be solved.
Throwing down the gauntlet on that.
I'm telling you, I'm serious about this one.
It has been 16 years and still no answer.
Police consider her killing a cold case.
Years later, the case is still unsolved.
I've chosen cold cases from across the country and teamed up with the best detectives to solve them. We're more determined than ever to bring justice to these victims. Hello.
Hey, how are you? Welcome. Dean Bradle.
I'm Kelly.
Nice to meet you, Kelly.
Anthony Assistant.
Nice to meet you. Reading your reports, you can feel y'all's pain and frustration working this case.
Hopefully we can put a dent in this thing and put it to rest.
I know.
I'm
Let's
hoping.
go.
Let's go. All right.
I was born in Patterson. My entire family is from Patterson. Unfortunately, the crime in Patterson has risen quite a bit from the time that I was a little boy here.
This must be Mr. Don.
Hi, Kelly.
Nice to finally meet you.
Nice to finally meet you. It's a pleasure. We look forward to working with you. I was the original sergeant investigating the Tanae Jones homicide, and we've never forgotten it. I have a daughter. It could be my wife and I. How do you let that go?
I'm gonna start putting Tanae's picture up on the board, okay, guys?
She was a nursing student. All the people we spoke to spoke very highly of her.
Tanae Jones was an innocent victim. She was your girl next door, had a great family, had a good upbringing. So when you see someone like that get killed, it's detrimental to the whole community.
Why don't you start with telling us the front of the story?
The family used to go down to Virginia for Thanksgiving with Tanae's grandparents. The family friend came to pick up Tanae to take her to the train. The door's ajar.
The scene was fairly contained to the bedroom itself. She was lying on her right side, right near the bed. There appeared to be some puncture wounds in the neck.
One of the weapons was a Phillips head screwdriver.
But ultimately, the injuries that caused her death were gunshot wounds to the head.
It was a contact wound. That's the small caliber 25.
In plain view were some jewelry, a cell phone,
so clearly wasn't a robbery.
You know, you got no forced entry, no rape, no robbery.
No stranger.
Right.
With investigators believing that Tanae was murdered by someone she knew, they dug into her world and developed a number of suspects that she had potential relationships with, including 2 she saw the night before she was murdered, Saturday night at a wedding she attended. Okay, so let's start with Arami Robinson.
We know for sure he's the last male that was with her. They go to the wedding on the 18th together. From his own statement, we know that they had sexual relations that evening.
How about DNA on her hand?
Yeah.
DNA under fingernails.
The tips of Tanae's fingernails were tested for DNA, and the results indicated that Arami Robinson could not be excluded. You have to consider the possibility that his DNA is present. It could be from their intimate evening the night before, but fingernail scrapings can sometimes be a strong indicator of a victim trying to protect herself from an assailant.
Okay, let's do Mr. Charles Devon Holmes. Ex-boyfriend?
Yeah.
Or are they still?
No, they were done.
It's over a year.
He was at the wedding. You know, he could have been mad that he sees her talking to someone else.
Multiple prior domestic violence offenses.
Charles Holmes' abusive relationship with Tanae makes you wonder if seeing her with another man on Saturday night sparked a jealous rage in him which led to her murder. Okay, we got now Keith Hill.
We certainly have to start with our anonymous call.
2 months after Tanae's murder, Patterson PD received an anonymous phone call.
Well, I know someone that knows that the person that said that they did that.
What's the guy's name that supposedly did it?
Keith Hill. He just knew of things that wasn't printed in the paper, and that's what made me think that he might have did it for real.
Give me all the things about the anonymous call that bothered y'all.
Blood on the curtains, and that the suspect went out the back door.
Okay.
Kelly, I think the scariest thing about him is the street talk that he was having a relationship with the victim.
Right.
Okay. And last we have Chadrick Chapel.
Ongoing volatile relationship, because it was on again, off again.
How about the escalating phone calls?
I mean, you have phone call after phone call after phone call going out to her cell.
When Chad's cell phone records were examined, his call frequency rate to Tanae was really alarming, especially that weekend of her murder. On Friday, Chad called Tanae 43 times, and his calls continued Saturday and into Sunday.
Chad goes to that friend, gives him a sweatshirt that he had in the car, and said, hey, throw this away from me, get rid of it.
And when does this happen?
21st.
It's the 21st.
21st?
Believe me, we went dumpster diving for that thing.
All right. What other little things?
Angry voicemails.
Oh, yeah. On Sunday night, the night of Tanae's murder, Chad left a series of voicemails wanting to see her and wondering where she was.
Yo, what the hell you at? You called me, I called you back. Like, you know what I'm saying? What the what's that? Just the bullshit I'm talking about, yo.
Chad's voicemail suggested he was getting increasingly angry with Tanae. So figuring out whether or not they actually met up could determine if he's our killer.
So she's really compartmentalizing her life. She's the student, she's the daughter, but then she's got these other things that she keeps very quiet.
That's why we hit such a brick wall.
We have 4 viable suspects, but there's never been enough evidence to prove that any of them is responsible. So it's gonna be a challenge to build a strong circumstantial case against whoever killed Tanae Jones. You've met Rose and Howard, huh?
Yes. It's difficult for them to have a full conversation about it without breaking down at some point. It tugs at you for sure.
Of time, love is all that's left to lose.
From talking to so many parents of murdered victims, I've learned not to say to them, I know how you feel, because we do not know how they feel.
After you?
Thank you. I think you just have to listen.
Nice to see you again, sir.
Hey. That's the most important thing, to know that someone out there wants to do something about their baby's case. Well, we are all excited to be working on your daughter's case. Can you tell me a little bit about Tanae?
Let my husband tell you.
Okay.
Well, I mean, my wife used to call her daddy's girl, you know. We would try to give her everything that we could. We always tried to instill in her, try to get a good education.
You know, we meet a lot of parents who, I don't know how you made it through what you have so far, but they split up and get divorced. How have y'all?
It's hard, and Initially, when it first happened, you know, I was very, very angry at everybody. I can't put into words exactly how much I really, really miss her. Her smile, just life in general, you know. They didn't only took her life, they took a part of our lives as well.
How'd you get through those early days, Rose?
It was just unbelievable. You know, I don't want whoever did this to walk around and think that they've gotten away with something. I tell Tanae before I turn the light out at night, it ain't over yet.
For her 21st birthday, I gave her a diamond necklace. And for her 22nd birthday, I had to purchase her a headstone.
My God, we have to solve this case. We have to clear this case.
Felt so great, you know, just knowing that people were still interested in this, you know, trying to bring justice.
It's way more than interested, I'll promise you that.
Yeah.
You know how I feel, so.
Yeah.
We're not coming back here and looking into the eyes of Howard and Rose Jones and telling them that it's still not the day. That can't happen. We're on our way to Tanae Jones' childhood home, where on November the 19th, 2000, while her parents were in Virginia getting ready to celebrate Thanksgiving, Tanae was brutally murdered in her bedroom. Once we do it happens here, and it happens in this order with the wounds and the injuries, and then follow the blood trail down the stairs, out the door, whichever door it is, to make it make sense. Tanae's parents lived in this house for 14 years before they moved to Virginia. But fortunately, we've been able to get access. It's always helpful to recreate a crime in the actual space where it happened, to see the layout and try and get a better understanding of how the murder occurred.
Picture from the crime scene photos, the door was ajar.
When Tanae's family friend arrived on Tuesday morning to pick her up, there were no signs of forced entry and both doors were open, which would suggest that Tanae let her killer inside.
Whoever it is the last person in. She's going up the steps in front of him or her, and that person's behind him. So that person, whoever it is, doesn't close the door all the way. The door is certainly not locked.
You're gonna go up?
Once Tanae opened the door for the suspect, they made their way through the dining room and into the kitchen, where one of the murder weapons, Tanae's family screwdriver, was normally kept.
There was a refrigerator here. This is the side of the refrigerator. Here's Tanae's bedroom, and the screwdriver would be up here somewhere. We don't know exactly where it was, obviously, because it's after the fact.
I think everything starts right here as far as the escalation of the argument. They come in here to kitchen to talk. And whether she actually has a screwdriver first or not, I don't know, but they're talking. My movie is that she's backing up. He gets to this point where he can reach up, grab it, and now he's leading her backwards. He forces her into the bedroom with it. She goes backwards over the bed, and he drives it right in. Now he's punctured her. Now he's got blood. She's fighting, and then two quick ones.
And she's not dead from those?
She's not dead. Now he gets the gun, jacks a round out, shoots one round next to her, which ends up in this direction. He takes the pillow, he muffles the shot, bang.
That's the one in the chin?
In the chin. Oh, that's non-fatal, too.
She's still moving around. She's trying to get herself out of here. All she knows is she wants to flee. She ends up on the floor. He fires one round here into the back of the head. She's left just like that.
The injuries when you do that to somebody, to have a screwdriver pushed into your neck, and then gunshot wounds to the face and to the back of the head. The suspect's very angry. I mean, it's almost like he tortured her, so it was very personal.
Every murder that I have made where someone was shot in the head and there was a pillow involved, it was always a boyfriend who couldn't look her in the eyes when he shot her. They always got to cover the front of the face when they shoot. I mean, she fought for her life on that bed.
Because so walk us through these blood smears.
Our guy comes out the bedroom door, makes a left, knowing that there's a back door here.
Based on blood transfer stains along the back stairwell, investigators believe that's the route the suspect fled. The blood was tested for DNA, but but it came back as Tanae's.
He opens our second floor door, and as he begins to go down the steps, he's got some blood somewhere on his right arm. He's going fast, so when he comes around the corner, he overshoots it, which is why that's a significant amount of blood, because he bangs into it pretty good. Keep in mind, this is the Price's family door. So if they're here, listen to these steps. There's no chance that anybody's in that apartment.
The Prices, who were Tanae's downstairs neighbors, returned home around 11:30 that night and heard nothing strange. Knowing how much noise would have come from gunshots and a suspect running down the stairs, we can assume that Tanae was killed before then.
Seeing the layout of the house inside, our guy knew it. He knew it very well. Not only inside, but the outside as well.
Yeah, and it's no coincidence that he went out this back door.
I think it really puts it in perspective just how personal it had to be in that bedroom for her to struggle and die there.
Seeing this crime scene firsthand really makes you able to appreciate the horror that Tanae must have felt those last minutes of her life. She was in her childhood bedroom, looking into the eyes of a man that she knew and fighting for her life. It breaks your heart and it makes you motivated to find out who in the hell committed this horrible murder. You know what, though? It's freaking snowing. We're gonna have good luck. It's gonna be good. Now that we've determined that Tanae was killed sometime before 11:30 p.m. when her neighbors came home, we can establish a window for when her murder took place, starting with the last time we know that Tanae was alive, which was 7:38 p.m. because that's when she talked to her cousin, Micaiah Nazareth.
You can just take a seat right over there.
It's important to understand everything that was going on in Tanae's world, and Micaiah wasn't just the last person that Tanae had talked to, she was one of her closest friends.
So there's a wedding, right? The following day was a Sunday, and I think you spoke to her.
Yeah. It was the evening. It was maybe around 7, 8 o'clock because I had just came home from work.
Okay.
And she told me she was going to see Chad. I said, so you sure? She said, yeah.
Now, can you describe her relationship with Chad?
She was trying to like distance herself from him. I guess it wasn't working out for her.
Do you know why they were distant?
Well, she wasn't really happy in the situation, and plus she had a boyfriend prior to that, and they had started communicating again. His name was Arame.
Did you like him?
Yes.
Okay. Do you think
Chad knew that Tanae wanted to break up with her?
I think so. I think that he noticed like maybe she wasn't coming around as much.
Tanae had plans with her on-again, off-again boyfriend, Chad Chappell, for that evening, but it sounds like she was planning on ending that relationship.
He used to call her a lot, like he'll keep calling. Sometimes she wouldn't answer.
Did he stalk her at all?
I think he would want to know where she was majority of the time.
We know that Chad left a series of angry voice messages on Tanae's phone that night, wondering where she was.
Yo, what the hell you like? You called me, I called you back. Like, you know what I'm saying? What the f*** that? Just the bullshit I'm talking about, yo.
And then another message the next morning which suggested that they never got together.
Yo, that was f***ed up. You ain't come see me, but hey, yo, can I at least see you today before you get? Can you call me, please?
Either Chad left that last message that morning because he really didn't know Tanae was dead, or he was trying to make it look like he didn't know.
Was he ever violent with her?
Not that I know of. She never told me anything like that. I mean, I know she had been in an abusive relationship before. Her and Divine would argue and things like that. Their relationship wasn't that great. He used to hit her.
Okay.
A lot.
It seems that Tanae found herself in a number of rocky relationships. And although she was talking about breaking up with Chad, seeing her abusive ex-boyfriend Charles Holmes at the wedding Saturday night may have reignited feelings that led to her murder. We are in Paterson, New Jersey, investigating the murder of 21-year-old Tanae Jones. We've been learning about Tanae's relationships with Charles Holmes and Chad Chappell, but we also need to look into a suspect named Keith Hill because he allegedly told some people he had something to do with Tanae's murder, and that led to an anonymous tip to the police department. The anonymous caller was later identified as Anna Ramsey, and we need to learn more about what she heard.
Back in 2000, I remember making a phone call to Paterson Police Department.
One of the people
people that lived on 17th Ave. I don't even know if he still lives over there now.
Who was that?
His name was Kaheem Hill, or Keith Hill. He was the person that had told somebody something about what was in the house that wasn't revealed in the news. It was something on the curtains or something, and blood on the curtain. Something that he was saying that would only indicate somebody that was there.
Okay. Keith Hill, is he the kind of guy that would make a story up and tell people?
No. I honestly, in my heart, believe that he had something to do with it. Who would describe something in a house of a murder if you're not there?
Right. Keith Hill never told it directly to you.
No. Look, I don't want to just send y'all on no wild goose chase. I'm just telling y'all what I heard.
Gotcha. Well, thank you for talking.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. I'll leave you my card if you think of anything else.
I'm listening to Miss Ramsey and I'm thinking, I wish all people that had this kind of information would call in, but everything that you're saying is second or third or fourth hand hearsay. We need to figure out where it originated to see if it's valid information at all. Anna Ramsey claims she heard this information from a friend who heard it from another woman in Keith's world. We need to get to the bottom of this to see whether or not she heard these words out of the mouth of Keith Hill.
Hello?
How you doing? This is Anthony Sesti with the prosecutor's office. Do you remember around 2000 when someone relatively close to your area was killed? It was a young college girl.
No, sir. I'm not familiar with that.
Did Keith ever say anything about her?
No, sir.
Mr. Hill never said anything to you?
No, sir.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
You're welcome, sir. Bye.
But that anonymous call is bogus then.
It comes back to nothing.
Right.
It just evaporated. It seems the talk of Keith Hill's involvement is just that, street talk rumors. But we can't clear Keith until we hear his explanation of how all these rumors got started. So Dean and Anthony sent a couple of officers to try and track him down. In the meantime, we need to get back to our investigation of Tanae's ex-boyfriend, Charles Holmes. Charles's alibi for Sunday night, the night of the murder, was that he was home with his live-in girlfriend, who actually attended the wedding the night before as Charles's date.
Would we be able to speak with you in person?
Not today.
Okay.
Well,
we could just talk to you over the phone.
Okay, that's fine.
Can you just describe your relationship with Mr. Holmes?
It wasn't the greatest.
Was he physically abusive with you?
Yes, there were physical altercations, yes.
And there was a wedding, I think you guys both attended, where Tanae was at?
I do remember attending a wedding with Charles Holmes, and it was his cousin's wedding.
Is there any way that you remember what you guys did the day after the wedding?
No, you know I can't remember that. I'm sorry.
No problem. Would you normally just spend the day together? Just a typical Sunday?
Well, since we were living together, I would think so. But I can't, like I said, I can't give you details because I don't remember.
Would he be able to go out at 10 p.m. and come in at 4 in the morning?
No, that wouldn't happen. I'm not the type of woman that just take any kind of behavior.
He wouldn't just be able to roam around all night without you knowing where he is? Okay.
Right. If he went out, we probably would have went out together.
Gotcha. Thank you very much.
It's been 17 years, so it's understandable that she can't remember the details of Sunday night. But based on her personality, it seems like Charles would have had a pretty tough time getting out of that house.
Wow.
Damn!
I feel better speaking to her.
Yeah.
You know, she would know what's going on. We really appreciate coming in. We know it's tough to work here.
Tanae and Charles weren't dating at the time of her murder, but with Charles's violent past and the fact that they saw each other the night before, he's right in the middle of this investigation and we have to talk to him.
You know why you're here today, right? We talk a little about Tanae Jones. Yes. Let's just recap the wedding. You see Tanae?
Yes, everything was good. So Tanae, she was with that was a boyfriend. She said hi. I said hi. She said, how's everything going? I said, great. Everything's great with you. And that was it.
You were there with...
Yes.
Okay. You leave with her?
Yes, we lived together.
Okay. So that brings us to Sunday. What'd you do Sunday?
Sunday, we had a normal routine, laundry, cook.
Did you go back out that night?
No.
Would you usually go back out? Would you meet up with your buddies or anything?
No, she was real strict. Once you in the house, you in the house.
I mean, I find that a little hard to believe. I mean, you're a young guy, a good-looking guy. You're never gonna go out and dip out and have some beers on the corner?
No. She would be a drill sergeant. You know, she was just controlling. She didn't want me to do anything. She wasn't having it. Especially on a Sunday. No.
I bet.
Just can't make this up.
Last time I saw her was at the wedding.
You have previous history. You guys fought, you know, you were violent with Tanae. You know, there's multiple people we spoke to who say you're violent and witnessed.
Well, no,
you know,
well, people are gonna say things or whatever, but I know in Tanae, you know, I mean, God, if she was here, she can tell you, it wasn't nothing like that. You know, we were young, people would go through a little arguments, you young, boyfriend and girlfriend at the time, but it wasn't nothing crazy.
Would you ever hit her?
No.
Charles's alibi for that night seems solid, but we also know he's not being upfront about the abuse, and that's something that you have to consider as the investigation moves forward.
We got someone who fit the script, grayish, black beard, black male tall, rode up on a bike.
The officers sent to find Keith Hill have located him, so they're going to ask him to come in for questioning.
Keith Hill is one of our suspects in the murder of 21-year-old Tanae Jones. It seems the talk of Keith Hill's involvement was all just street talk, but we can't clear him out until we talk to him.
So here's the deal, bro. Your name came up in this investigation. Somebody called the Patterson Police Department and said you were the guy.
They thought I was the suspect because of my girl name was Shatona. Her name is spelled like almost alike.
You're saying that Shatona Jones and you were together.
Yes.
You guys had a relationship.
Exactly.
And because a girl named Jones was killed not too far from your house,
with the same name, or the name is almost identical.
They thought that maybe you were involved.
Exactly.
Okay. Did you ever tell someone that you were involved in that?
And that murder?
Yeah.
Hell no. I don't know her. I never met her a day in my life. Never.
Is there a witness that says they messed with each other? It's just rumor?
It's all rumor on the street.
It seems that there's no truth to the rumor that Keith Hill had a relationship with Tanae or knew anything about the crime scene. And since there were no signs of forced entry, if Tanae didn't know Keith, it's unlikely she would have invited him into her house.
Let me ask you this. Will you be willing to give us a swab? Because you know already.
I promise you can get that.
It ain't gonna come back wrong, right? You can get
blood, anything.
All right. That's what I'm talking about.
Like, I know my innocence.
Okay. Anybody have anything else before we?
No, that was good.
I'm comfortable with his responses and what we thought was a potential relationship between he and Miss Jones. There was no such relationship, and he didn't know who Tanae Jones was.
That anonymous call is bogus.
We've confirmed that the anonymous call, which initially made Keith Hill a suspect and suggested that he knew about the crime scene, was all just street talk and rumors. At this point, we are confident Keith Hill had absolutely nothing to do with this murder, and he can be cleared out. We freaking got rid of a suspect.
I was gonna say, we vetted out a whole person.
1 down, 3 to go. I'm happy. We still have 3 suspects on our board: Charles Holmes, Chad Chappell, and Arami Robinson, who was the last man to be with Tanae.
Grab a seat.
Arami was also dating Tanae, and he was with her that Saturday night at the wedding before she was murdered.
The last time that I've seen Tanae Jones, her girlfriend was getting married. She invited me to the wedding, and we had a great time.
And what was the plan after leaving the reception?
She came out my residence, and we had a romantic evening. Did you attend the services? Absolutely.
You know, me and my family went to Tanae's home to pay our respects to the mother and father. I attended the homegoing services. You know, it was just rough, very emotional.
You know, understand, I even went to church services with Tanae's moms after she passed.
So do you have any idea who may have been responsible for her death?
Well, no. But as far as like what I'm telling you is regarding like last time seeing her, spending time on her, all of that is legit. I've never had any reasons or nothing to harm Tanae.
Arami has always been cooperative with the investigators, and he seems to have always genuinely cared about Tanae, which makes me believe that the possibility of his DNA being under Tanae's fingernails is likely a result of their intimate evening the night before. When I told my daughters I was working the case in New Jersey, they were like, Mom, you're gonna see all those suntan boys that wear those big gold necklaces.
I wear a gold necklace.
Let me see. That's a big freaking necklace, Anthony.
Of course.
While Arami and Tanae were trying to rekindle their relationship, she was talking about breaking up with her on-again, off-again boyfriend, Chad Chappell. We know Tanae had planned on seeing Chad the night of her murder. It's time for us to shift our focus and learn all that we can about Chad.
We're here.
We know Chad has had volatile relationships before, so we want to speak to his ex-girlfriend to learn more about his behavior toward women.
You had a restraining order.
Yeah, we had a pretty bad relationship from playing Russian roulette. He killed my iguana. He blacked my eye one time. He choked me. Probably I'd say about 3 times.
What made him mad enough to choke you?
Jealousy. He just was a very jealous guy. All the time.
Can we go over to Russian roulette?
He was just like, this is what's gonna happen if you don't stop hanging around these other dudes.
Was there bullets in the
Yeah, he
gun?
had one in there. He just was holding it to me.
And did he actually pull the trigger?
Yeah.
Man. I was just curious about the iguana situation. What happened that day?
He got mad and he put him in the shower and he drowned.
And you were
Drowned
there?
him. Yeah, he made me watch it.
Was he saying anything to you at that time? As he
You're
killed you?
next. I thought he was gonna kill me and I was just done. I was like, that's it.
Wow.
Listening to Chad's ex-girlfriend's alleged account of her experience with him is pretty scary, and it shows that he is capable of extreme violence toward women. She got out of that relationship, and she now understands how lucky she is, and she sure as hell could have been Tanae.
I tell everybody all the time, I am so scared of the killer.
Why do you refer to him as the killer?
Because that's just what I believe he is.
Got the big coffee this morning.
Man. Got a lot to do.
Evidence is mounting in our case against our primary suspect, Chad Chappell. Now that we've learned how controlling and violent he was, and knowing that Tanae was planning on breaking up with him, Chad's possible motive has become a whole lot clearer. If he couldn't have her, nobody could.
She's on the outskirts.
Natasha was dating Chad the same time period as Tanae and claimed to be with him in her dorm room on the night of the murder.
He had a seat up front.
Although initially reluctant to provide details, she eventually admitted that Chad left campus at some point that night.
Okay, so the time frame we're talking about, by your words, and we'll use your words, around 9 o'clock he leaves, 11:30, he comes back to campus.
And I remember, him changing the clothes. I remember him making a point of, this is what I'm wearing.
Chad leaving between 9 and 11:30 p.m. that night falls right into our window. So not only did Chad leave campus, but he returned to Natasha's room wearing different clothes.
After you learned about this incident with Tanae, did you say to him, hey, what's going on here?
No, never.
Did you want to?
I think I got scared of the answer.
When you say I was afraid of the answer,
Because, he had a gun.
and how do you know that?
Because I remember seeing the gun. He brought it to my dorm room.
Can you describe it?
I remember it was just a little gun.
Not only did Chad deny owning a gun, which we now know is a lie, but Tanae was shot with a .25, which is a little gun. So that very well may be our murder weapon.
After the incident with Tanae, did you ever see that gun again?
No.
The morning after Tanae's murder, before Tanae's body was found, we know Chad took Natasha to go see his friends 40 miles away from Patterson.
On Monday, November 20th, you go down to New Brunswick and do things with his friends. That was unique, or how would you categorize that as?
That was like the first time. Makes you think like I was used to have an alibi.
Exactly.
This is why we never give up on cases like this. You sometimes get new information, and Natasha may have just told us what we need to break the case wide open.
He was a bit of a wild type. If we were New Edition, he was Bobby Brown.
Another witness who initially corroborated Chad's alibi for the weekend of Tanae's murder was his friend Gene the General Bruno. Gene first caught the attention of police as a witness when he called into the department asking for Natasha while she was being interviewed.
All right, so Chad comes up to you and he's like,
Call the Patterson police and ask for Natasha.
Well, he was like, yo, do me a favor. Call this girl for me. She's in the police station. They're on her ass. Tell her she don't got to be there if she don't want to.
How was he acting?
He was, like a scared. Like, you know, when you're about to cry.
Did he repetitively ask you?
Tell the police you were with him Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
He drilled it in like, yo, I was with you. Like, we were here. He probably was with us for like a day or something like that,
But it wasn't all three.
No.
That's all new. This is exactly what we needed. All those people that originally validated Chad's alibi are poking holes in that story today.
Before, I'm not gonna lie, I was younger. Like, basically, those f***ing police. Now that I've grown, if he did it, I hope he gets caught. I hope y'all catch him in jail.
Nice.
With every new piece of information we learn, the case against Chad Chappell gets stronger. And now it's time to confront him. Okay?
I'm hopeful that he'll talk to us. I'm looking forward to having face-to-face contact with him for the first time in 16 years.
Hey, how you doing, man?
Hey, Chad, how are you? I'm Dean Bradle.
You have a minute to talk to us?
We greet Chad, and he's visibly surprised that we're here. He's, for lack of a better word, breaking his pants. He wants us to come back later to talk.
Nervous as
All right, so 6 o'clock.
It's time to get comfortable.
Yes, sir.
Sorry, we came back a little early because we were just trying to wrap up
It's
the
all right.
day. So.
Phil, are you there? Here's.
Who is this that we're speaking to?
Who is this?
His name is Phil. He's my attorney.
Okay.
Oh, your attorney?
Yes, sir.
Hello.
Chad has his attorney on the phone, which means by law, we can no longer speak to him.
Have a nice day, sir.
No problem.
We weren't able to get the answers from Chad we hoped for, but now we know how uneasy he feels. It's still being looked at for Tanae's murder.
He was trembling.
Yeah.
We've talked to all the witnesses, we've approached all the suspects, and it's time to review everything we've learned about our 3 remaining suspects and decide if we think there's enough evidence to present this case to a prosecutor. Charles Devon Holmes.
We know from speaking to all of her friends that he hadn't had any contact with her in and around the time of the homicide.
And his alibi with his live-in girlfriend, there's no way he would have made it out of the house.
Good point. Charles did lie about his abuse, but I think the part where he describes what was going on in his own life back then with his own woman, how he had moved on, it's believable. Okay, so when we get to Arami Robinson.
He was cooperative from day one. He provided us with swabs.
He even went with Tanae's parents to the gravesite months later because he was still sad.
And when we spoke to him recently, he was very concerned still that this investigation was open and offered to continue to cooperate.
Arami Robinson, when I first started reading the case, was suspect number 1. But he's done all that he could to try and help this investigation move forward. And finally, we have Chad Chappell. And look at all those pieces. In my whole career, I have never met a detective who didn't want physical evidence, a smoking gun, or a confession, but cold cases don't work that way. And we have to appreciate the beauty of circumstantial evidence. All of the little bitty pieces that when you put them together and use your freaking common sense, tell a story. If you just had one circumstance, okay, maybe it's weak. But when you have Chad Chappell, you're talking about a man who's a controlling, abusive stalker in one circumstance.
He just was a very jealous guy. When he choked me, thought he was gonna kill me, and I was just done.
She was gonna break up with him that day.
She was trying to like distance herself from him.
The alibi gets blown up so beautifully. You got a witness that can say, he changed clothes.
I remember him making a point of, this is what I'm wearing.
And you have that Chad had a gun stashed in her room. And then he has somebody called down to your department to stop your interview.
He was like, yo, do me a favor. Call this girl for me. She's in the police station. Tell her she don't gotta be there.
And then what happens with those cell phone calls? Chad's pattern of calls and voice messages to Tanae paint a clear picture of his escalating anger leading up to Tanae's murder. And then on Monday, when only the killer would know that Tanae is dead, the call stopped except for one voicemail, which now seems like Chad was trying to create the illusion. He was unaware Tanae was dead.
Yo, that was up. You ain't come see me, but hey, yo, can I at least see the day before you jet?
If you just had, he's a dick, if you just had cell phone records, maybe it's weak. But when you got all these, you can't freaking break them. Y'all have been busting your asses for 17 years, and it's time. Anthony, you ready?
I'm ready. I like it.
Don?
Absolutely, with bells on.
Well, we're wishing you luck, man. Prosecutor's office contacted Howard and Rose yesterday to give them their decision. They do not believe at this point there's enough evidence to move forward with presenting the case to a grand jury or filing charges. And now I'm headed to talk to Howard and Rose about that decision. This kind of a conversation where you're going to break two people's hearts who've already had their hearts broken, I've never had this hard of a conversation my whole life. When I read the case, I thought that this case can be solved. And if it weren't for the belief that we all have and had that it could be solved, we wouldn't have put you through all this.
I'm just beyond myself after talking with them yesterday.
I just had the, I guess, highest hopes or whatever until I got that phone call. Then after I got that phone call, it was just like...
No word can describe how bad that I would love to see whoever committed this crime to be punished for it. It won't bring Tanae back, but it will make me feel better.
Have you ever thought about, I can't take this anymore, it's painful? No? Why not?
I tell Tanae
like
every day.
To Tanae.
Yeah.
You tell what?
I told her it's not over. If it's another 17 years, it's another 17 years. At least something. She didn't die in vain.
As long as I'm living, I'm going to keep fighting. Because I feel as though I owe this to her.
As long as y'all want to keep fighting, we'll be standing there right behind you.
Okay.
All we can do is pray and hope that something changes and something happens. Come here. I don't know what to tell you, baby. Please hang in there, okay? Oh, God. So this case can move forward, and they can finally get justice and some kind of peace. For more cold justice, go to oxygen.com.